al-Dawla Abu el-Mali Sharif, more commonly known by his laqab, al-Dawla, was the second ruler of the Hamdanid Emirate of Aleppo, encompassing most of northern Syria. The son of the emirate's founder, Sayf al-Dawla, he inherited the throne at a young age and in the midst of a major Byzantine offensive that within 2 years conquered the western portions of his realm and turned Aleppo into a tributary state, facing a multitude of rebellions and desertions until 977 SAD was unable even to enter his own capital, which was in the hands of his father's chief minister, Qarquya. By maintaining close relations with the Buyids, he managed to re-establish his authority in parts of the Jazira, but his rule was soon challenged by the rebellion of his governor Bakjur, who was supported by the Fatimids of Egypt. In turn, Sad came to rely increasingly on Byzantine assistance, although he continued to fluctuate in his allegiance between Byzantium, the Buyids, and the Fatimids. Biography. Early years. Sad al-Dawla was the son of Sayf al-Dawla, the first emir of Aleppo, and Sakina, the sister of Sayf al-Dawla's cousin and court poet, Abu Firis. At the time of his father's death, in February 967, he was only 15, and resided at the emirate's Jazira capital, Farid. His succession to the emirate was unopposed, but the state his father had left him was crumbling. The Byzantine emperor Nicephorus II had just conquered Cilicia and was raiding its northern and western provinces, while rebellions of his closest lieutenants had plagued Sayf al-Dawla's last years. Sad al-Dawla reached Aleppo, which for years had been governed by Sayf al-Dawla's chief minister and chamberlain, Qarquya, in June-July 967. Almost immediately he was confronted by a rebellion of his uncle, Abu Firis, at the time governor of Homs, which lasted until the latter's death in battle in April 968. At the same time, Aleppo itself was threatened by the Byzantines, and Sad al-Dawla, on the advice of Qarquya, left the city. The Byzantines did not attack the city, but Qarquya and his fellow guildsmen seized the moment to claim the city for themselves. Accompanied by 300 faithful followers, Sad al-Dawla was thus reduced to wandering from city to city across the lands that were nominally his. Hoping to gain entry, Saruj, Manbij and Harran refused to support him, while at Farid his own mother refused to let him in. Finally, he found refuge at Homs. In the meantime, many of his father's old supporters left to join his cousin Abu Talib, emir of Mosul, who used the opportunity to expand his own territory. Immediately after Sayf al-Dawla's death, he captured al-Raqqa, and by 971 extended his control over the provinces of Diyar Bakr and Diyar Muda. Sad al-Dawla, unable to offer any resistance, tacitly accepted these losses as well as his cousin's suzerainty. The year 969 was a crucial one in Syrian history, as it marked the climax of the Byzantine Advance. In October, the generals Michael Buyids and Peter captured Antioch, securing the control over the North Syrian littoral. Soon after, the Byzantines marched against Aleppo itself and forced Qarquya to sign a treaty making Aleppo a tributary Byzantine protectorate with Qarquya as emir and his deputy, Bakjur, as his designated successor. At the same time, in Egypt, the Fatimids defeated the Ikhshidids and gained control of the country, from where they advanced into southern Syria. The competition between these two powers, Byzantium and the Fatimids, would shape the history of Syria and of Aleppo for the next 50 years. Recovery of Aleppo, conflicts with Bakjur, the Fatimids and Byzantium. It was not until 977 that Sad al-Dawla managed to regain his capital, which by now was under the control of Bakjur, who in 975 had deposed and imprisoned Qarquya, aided by some of his father's guildmen, and, crucially, the powerful Banu Kilab tribe living around Aleppo. Al-Dawla besieged Aleppo and captured it. Qarquya was set free and again entrusted with the affairs of state until his death a few years later, while Bakjur was given the governorship of Homs. Soon after, in 979, he was able to capitalize upon Abu Talib's conflict with the Buyids of Iraq to recover some of his father's domains in the Jazira. After acknowledging Buyids' suzerainty, he received governorship of the Diyar Muda, except for al-Raqqa and Rabba. At the same time, he also received from the Abbasid Caliph, who was a puppet of the Buyids, the honorific laqab by which he is known. Bakjur, in the meantime, had used his new post at Homs to open contacts with the Fatimids, who were intended to use him as a pawn to subdue Aleppo and complete their conquest of the entirety of Syria. Al-Dawla himself oscillated between the Fatimids and Byzantium. On the one hand, he resented Byzantine overlordship and was willing to acknowledge the Fatimid Caliph, but on the other hand did not want to see his domain become merely another Fatimid province like southern Syria. His first attempt to shake free of the Byzantine protectorate in 981 thus ended in failure due to lack of outside support. When a Byzantine army appeared before Aleppo's walls to enforce compliance, the Fatimids now induced Bakjur to act, and in September 983, the latter launched an attack on Aleppo with the support of Fatimid troops. Al-Dawla was forced to appeal to the Byzantine Emperor Basil II for help, and the siege was raised by a Byzantine army under Bardis Phocas the Younger. The Byzantines then proceeded to sack Homs in October. The city was returned to Hamdanid control, while Bakjur fled to Fatimid territory, where he assumed the governorship of Damascus. It is an indication of the strained relations between Al-Dawla and his saviors that after Bakjur's flight, there were clashes between Byzantine and Hamdanid troops, which were settled only when the Hamdanid Emir agreed to pay twice the usual yearly amount of tribute of 20,000 gold dinars. Hamdanid relations with Byzantium collapsed completely in 985 to 986, after the Fatimids took the Byzantine fortress of Balagnaz. Al-Dawla refused to continue paying tribute. As a result, the Byzantines under Bardis Phocas invaded his territory and sacked Kilis before retracing the steppes and marching south to an unsuccessful siege of Apamea. In retaliation, Al-Dawla sent his troops to raze the famous monastery of Qalasiman. However, soon after that, in May 986, the prospect of an imminent conclusion of a peace between Byzantium and Egypt forced Al-Dawla to return to his earlier allegiance, and he reaffirmed his tributary status on the same terms as before. This did not prevent Al-Dawla from supporting the Byzantine general Bardis Claros in his second rebellion against Basil II. Once he was released from Buyid captivity in December 896, nor of recognizing Fatimid suzerainty in the same month, especially as Byzantium now descended into a civil war that lasted until 989. Warfare with the Fatimids once again threatened in 991, again because of Bakjur. He had governed Damascus until 988, when he was deposed, and then fled to Raqqa. For that, though with little support from the Fatimids, he tried to attack Aleppo. Al-Dawla, with Byzantine assistance in the form of troops under the Duke of Antioch, Michael Buyids, was able to defeat and capture Bakjur at Naura east of Aleppo in April 991, and later had him executed. Nevertheless, relations with the Fatimids soured over al-Dawla's arrest of Bakjur's children, and it was only his death of hemiplegia in December 991 that stopped him from attacking Fatimid possessions. Al-Dawla was succeeded by his son, Sayyid Abu al-Fayda Sayyid al-Dawla, but real power rested in the hands of Sayyid al-Dawla's former chamberlain Eliu. Several of the Hamdanid guildsmen, resenting the influence of Eliu, went over to the Fatimids, who now launched a sustained offensive against Aleppo under the Turkish general Manjutakin. Only the personal intervention of Basil II in 995 and again in 999 would save the emirate from Fatimid conquest. Warfare lasted until 1000, when a peace treaty was concluded guaranteeing Aleppo's continued existence as a buffer state between the two powers. Finally, in 1002, Eliu assassinated Sayyid al-Dawla and assumed control of Aleppo in his own name. Bibliography. Canard, Marius, Hamdanids. The Encyclopedia of Islam, New Edition, Volume 3. H. Iram, Leiden and New York. Brill, pp. 126–131. ISBN 9004094199. Eltaib, Abdullah, Abu Firas al-Amdani. Inashni, Julia, Johnston, T. M. Latham, J.D., Sargent R. B. Smith, A. Rex, Abbasid Bell Lettre, Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, pp. 315–327. ISBN 0-521-24016-6. Kennedy, Hugh N. The Prophet and the Age of the Caliphates, the Islamic Near East from the 6th to the 11th century. Harlow, UK. Pearson Education Limited. ISBN 0-582-40525-4. Stevenson, William B. Chapter 6. Islam in Syria and Egypt. In Bury, John Bagnall. The Cambridge Medieval History, Volume 5. Contest of Empire and Papacy. New York. The Macmillan Company. pp. 242–264. External link in title equals. Whittow, Mark. The Making of Byzantium, 600 1025. Berkeley, University of California Press. ISBN 9780520204966-6.